Welcome back to the Crypto's Key Conversation. We're going to jump straight into this one. So this tweet from Stuart Alderati has been going around, and there's been a lot of speculation and talks about Supreme Court here. And Stuart Alderati, who is Ripple's general counsel, says the SEC has lost 4 of its last 5 cases in the Supreme Court, thanks to the few that had the courage and resources to fight back against the SEC bullying and clinging to stretched legal positions that were not faithful to the law. So there's been a lot of back and forth as to whether this is a good thing or bad thing. Clearly, we know Ripple, the company, has the resources and courage, and clearly they're here to fight and stand for, the truth, because they know they're on the right side of law, on the right side of history, based on, I guess how they roll out their business and how they've conducted things. Clearly, they're trying to be transparent and trying to do things the fair and just way. Here's the thing is, if this thing goes to Supreme Court, obviously there's been speculation of it being 2+ years. Who knows how long it could be? And depending on discretion of the Supreme Court, it can go on for years. So clearly we've been in this case since 2020. Ripple and XRP community has been under scrutiny in the entire market for years prior to that. So a lot of people are just like, okay, this could be a good thing. They can just go and dominate. But then there's other people on the other side saying, no, let's just, let's get this going. Hopefully the judge, rules in Ripple's favor. Some sort of settlement may come, or just some outright win might come. And then, Ripple can move forward as a company. Digital asset XRP and the XRPL can continue to flourish, grow. And the investors that invest in the digital asset can, finally reap the rewards of their valiant effort of fighting back and spreading information and hodling strong. So there's been, all the way from the left side all the way to the right side, as into, hey, this could be good, but this can be bad. So this is going to be like the spark of our conversation throughout this video here. So moving on here, Digital Asset Investor had put up a couple different tweets that Brad Garlinghouse and the like, and Stuart Alderati had put up here. And he says, for me, these 3 tweets are Ripple execs telling Gary that if he keeps effing around, he's going to find out. That was some gangster stuff. He's going to find out. What's he going to find out? It says, remember, Gary won't be there much longer. Gary wants the treasury job and needs some kind of victory, a Ripple victory as a trophy on his wall. He doesn't give a rat's butt about protecting investors. I'm assuming the Supreme Court would make it someone else's victory if the SEC won. I still say this ends in a settlement where Gary gets a record fine, while Ripple also gets the XRP clarity now and going forward. And that's quite honestly, I hope that happens. I speculate more on the sides of how Johnny Deaton sees things in his time frame and how he thinks things roll out. I know he's talked about several different ways this thing can end. But it's just a waiting game. So the tweets that he covered us. Let me zoom out. Yeah, the tweets that he covered here says, this is from Brad Garland House, responding to Stuart Alderati, says, over 18 months, this was back in October 2022, over 18 months and 6 court orders later, we finally have the Hinman docs. And he says, the SEC wants you to think that it cares about disclosure, transparency, and clarity. Don't believe them. When the truth eventually comes out, the shamefulness of their behavior here will shock you. So let me zoom out. There's another one. Is it forward? Yeah. So long story short, you can see that there's so much confidence on the Ripple side of things, because they know like they have the truth on their side. So the shameful tactics from the SEC is clearly coming to bite them in the butt. This is Brad Garlinghouse from that Collision interview. He says, quote, there's no doubt that if the SEC doesn't win their case against us, that it is good for crypto in the United States. Hands down, we've been talking about, Ripple and XRP being the shining light, within this industry, especially with this black cloud that's over us from all the shady conflicts of interest and closed behind door meetings and just awkward and really unethical approach to the markets. It's sad. And responding to Stuart Alderati talking about the Supreme Court, Mr. Huber put this up, 2028, and then it's that The Office. No, God, please, no. Literally, that's how I'm feeling. At the end of the day, obviously, I have no control. It is what it is. Maybe they have some sort of agenda or some sort of plan to roll this thing out, but I just don't see how this is going to benefit. Obviously, what Ripple's trying to do, they're trying to IPO. They're trying to be able to get the green light to continue to grow and expand. So I don't see how this would be the right approach, especially because it seems like they're dominating within litigation. Just going to be a waiting game to kind of see what happens. Moving on here. This is from Weezy X. He had put this up because he's responding to one of John Deaton's tweets when he's talking about, this was back in July. It says, a federal judge used the word hypocrisy in describing the tactics employed by the SEC. She also commented that the lawyers at the SEC are more motivated by self-interest than a faithful allegiance to the law. And Weezy X says, SEC versus Heartland Advisors, Inc., SEC versus Sybil Systems, and SEC versus Stringer. WX Corporation versus SEC. All these cases have something in common beyond the tribunal's harsh words for the position of or tactics taken by the SEC. The SEC lost every one of these cases, and man, if you put Ripple v SEC up there, oh man, it'll be another L. So coming here, John Dean's responding to Crypto News Flash. It says SEC can get only this victory against XRP, but Ripple will win big. SEC lawyer XRP to hit $10. So John Dean says, I always like to back up anything I say with facts, explaining why I believe the way I do. In the next tweet thread, I'm going to quote the SEC summary judgment argument versus Ripple. The following quote perfectly summarizes the SEC's theory in a nutshell. So it says, quote, defendants do not dispute that they offered and sold XRP in exchange for money, which suffices to establish the investment of money aspect of the Howey test. Defendant statements and efforts as to XRP establish the other aspects of the Howey test as a matter of law. Now that's an interesting way to approach the Howey test. I've said in the past that the SEC is attempting to apply the functional equivalent of but-for test in securities laws. The theory is because Ripple executives created XRP and XRPL and then undertook efforts to help create a secondary market, all XRP, including XRP traded in the secondary market, constitute securities, regardless of the seller or the circumstances surrounding the sale. We can all agree, even if you despise Ripple and believe XRP was sold as security, the SEC's theory is successful, would establish a dangerous precedent. As I say in my amicus brief, this is not how the Howey test is applied, nor is it an example of how the laws function. The SEC didn't allege or prove specific transactions, but claimed all transactions, past, present, and future, meet the Howey test as a matter of law. The SEC claims Ripple's statements and efforts satisfy the remaining prongs of the Howey without conducting a specific Howey analysis, which is shameful. So remember, you have to fulfill all four prongs of the Howey test for it to actually be considered a security. Okay. As yourself, how does Ripple's statements and efforts establish the common enterprise factor as a matter of law? The SEC actually shortcuts the analysis and argues that XRP itself, the token, represents the common enterprise. The SEC argues, quote, the escrow account's purpose was to remind investors of the common enterprise XRP represented. Thus, XRP represents the common enterprise. Remember, the SEC argued, quote, XRP, including XRP traded in the secondary market, represents the investment contract. Thus, XRP represents both the investment contract and the common enterprise. The SEC also argued, quote, Ripple offered and sold XRP for money as a common enterprise. Here, the SEC literally claims that XRP itself is the common enterprise. Even if you hate Ripple, you must see the inherent flaw in the SEC's conclusory and circular reasoning. According to the SEC, since it represents both the common enterprise and investment contract, any purchase of XRP automatically satisfy all prongs of the Howey test. The SEC obsessions with focusing on the token and not on the circumstances surrounding the offer as a whole allows the SEC to sidestep a legitimate Howey analysis. It takes unconstitutional bootstrapping to a level not seen before. This is why I said the SEC may have snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. As I point out to Judge Torres, quote, simply put, the allegations contained in the amended complaint are quite possibly the most overboard, far-reaching claims ever made in an SEC enforcement action. And as you can see, just in this tweet thread, great job, John Dean, by the way. They're literally trying to spin in any way they possibly can. This is literally like having a toxic relationship with a man or woman or whatever the case, and they have like their argument right, and they're trying to connect the dots from past arguments that, in a sense, has nothing to do with the actual argument. And it's just shameful how I like how you said just like how they're going in circles in a sense, and they're literally just trying to use their power to, as we say, regulate by enforcement, which is just shameful because you're only hurting the so-called investors you're set out to protect. He continues on here with Bill Morgan responding to it. Bill says, If that is the best summary, it must be wrong. How can an ODL customer who holds the XRP for seconds before exchanging it for fiat by making an investment or expecting a profit? What am I missing here? John responds and says, Bill, at this point, SC might agree with you. Remember, they made a big deal about the fact that Ripple did not have a commercial use until October 2018 and really took off in May 2020. That's a major reason they went with the XRP token itself represents all of Ripple's efforts. Also remember, the SC argues that even if a country adopts XRP as a currency in the future, XRP will still be a security because of all the Ripple's efforts up until that point. They're literally trying to get anything to fit their narrative. You're talking about grasping for straws. Literally, that's a perfect example. So they continue the conversation here. Bill says, thanks, John. I love an exchange with you on these issues. The SEC's argument about XRP itself representing all Ripple's efforts and therefore a security would mean efforts of others convert an asset into a security rather than being a prong in deciding whether a sale or offer of the asset is an investment contract. If that is the essence of the SEC's argument, I am out of the debate and down to the pub for a beer because I find the argument of the SEC stupid, and stupidity is very exhausting. So those deep sighs, those deep breaths, the laughing, just the frustration that you hear in my voice when I make these videos, that's literally what it is. Covering this stuff, being a part of this industry since late 2017, being in, I guess one of the early investors. I wasn't super early into XRP, but like just seeing how things have been in regards of just the scrutiny, the hate, and then now you have the SEC doing what they're doing. It's just, yeah, exhausting is an understatement. Let's just leave it at that. We like to say we're so close, but this talk of the Supreme Court, oh boy. We'll see what that does to the to the community. This is from Mr. Huber here. I thought this is huge. This is a 10-second clip. So he has a quote here that says, quote, the hypocrisy arguing Bill Himmons sought legal advice from the SEC staff drafting his speech while claiming his speech is irrelevant for SEC crypto regulation suggests the SEC is adopting its litigation positions to further its goal and not out of the faithful allegiance to the law. So listen to our current Chairman Gensler literally contradict himself here. Let's listen in.
There needs to be clarity in the market.
I think there's actually a fair amount of clarity.
There needs to be clarity in the market.
I think there's actually a fair amount of clarity.
There need.
So you can see, I mean, obviously, if you watching this video, you may have a lot to know, but if you're new, you can see the frustration with the community, especially when it comes to Chairman Gensler. Even think about like the entrepreneurs and the blockchain companies, these digital assets, like these developers, like how much frustration they may have. At one point you claim, and we claim, there's no clarity. It's so gray. And then you have our Chairman Gensler now flipping the script saying it's quite clear. It's just like, bro, like how are we supposed to do this? You won't even tell us anything. It's just like ambiguous and like I said, gray. It's like, what do they say? It's clear as mud. We'll leave it at that. Mr. Huber had another one here that I thought was interesting. So this is a whole nother conversation, but I wanted to put it on this video because it has to do with Ethereum and our CFTC chairman here. It says, watch this. Now, quote, now the SEC already did. I am pleased to announce that Ethereum is not a security too. Of course, that is just my personal opinion, but it's my opinion as CFTC chairman. Predict regulated Ethereum futures are coming, maybe already in the next few weeks. So let's take a quick listen into this.
Very broad definition. I'm not going to give it to you now, but essentially, if you have to say that a movie ticket is not a commodity, which is in our statute, it covers a lot of financial contracts. If it's a security, it gets kicked out. So to your question, Scott, we've been very clear on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a commodity under the Commodity Exchange Act. We haven't said anything about Ether until now. It is my view as chairman of the CFTC that Ether is a commodity, and therefore it will be regulated under the CEA. And my guess is that you will see in the near future Ether-related futures contracts and other derivatives potentially traded.
So you're hearing this all for the first time. This is first on Yahoo Finance. Breaking news.
Breaking news. It's my conclusion personally, but as chairman of the CFTC, that Ether is a commodity and therefore would fall under our jurisdiction.
Why a commodity, though?
So the commodity definition is very broad, as I mentioned, and the way that it works is most things are commodities, particularly financial contracts or stores of value. Securities are commodities, but they're kicked out the way the statute works, and the SEC regulates those. So as long as it's not a security, it basically falls within the definition of a commodity. And I would encourage all of you, to the extent you have time, the SEC has gone through and essentially laid out an analysis of when a crypto asset is a security or not. So it's a very interesting test, but essentially, if it's being used as an investment, and you're making an investment in a crypto asset, and that crypto asset is a common enterprise, and you think you're going to derive profits from the work of others, as opposed to the intangible value of the crypto asset itself, then it's more likely to be a security.
This is the Howey test from 1946. It was a landmark SEC case that kind of determined the framework for what a security is. But we should just point out, Ether is the second largest cryptocurrency. It's got a market cap of about $20 billion. Bitcoin is obviously the most valuable cryptocurrency with a market cap of $150 billion. You mentioned the possibility of Ether derivatives, Ether futures. Do you think that happens this year?
I think it's entirely possible. I mean, we've got a few months left in this year, so I would say within the next 12 months, I think you could absolutely see that, maybe even sooner than 12 months.
Would there be enough demand for Ether futures?
It's a great question. I think we're going to let the markets decide that, but I definitely think there's interest in our regulated platforms in trying it out. I mean, when you look at the history of futures contracts and commodities, some of them have been trading over 100 years. The number 2 corn contract, a commodity.
Interesting. We'll leave that one. We'll leave that one alone. So we're gonna end on this one right here. Okay, so this is from Crypto Eddie, and this is Elizabeth Warren here talking to this gentleman. I forgot what school he teaches at, but just listen to the dialogue in the conversation, and everything just literally seems scripted, just like how she is with Chairman Gensler. I mean, it's just sickening just to even look at her face and to look at her demeanor as if like she's doing the right and just thing. It's crazy. So Crypto Eddie says it was Gralinghouse that had penned an open letter to Congress asking them not to use a broad brush in 2019. This needs to be called out. It's distorted truth and far off the mark of representing the people. Let's take a quick listen into this.
Crypto was the payment method of choice for international drug traffickers who raked in over $1 billion through crypto, North Korean hackers who stole $1.7 billion and funneled that money into their nuclear program, and ransomware attackers who took in almost $500 million. The crypto market took in $20 billion last year in illicit transactions, and that's only the part we know about. You know, that is a lot of fentanyl and heroin, a lot of help for Iran and Russia, and a lot of money leaking out to terrorists. And that is precisely what anti-money laundering rules are designed to stop. Now, Mr. Reiners, you've studied financial technologies, including crypto, for many years now. And before that, you worked as a regulator. Why do drug lords and human traffickers in countries like North Korea and Iran use crypto instead of banks and credit unions or even Western Union?
Thank you, Senator. So crypto pseudonymity makes it ideally suited for bad actors. And when you couple that with the fact that crypto transactions are not subject to the same AML and countering the financing of terrorism.
AML meaning anti-money
laundering and the countering the financing of terrorism statutes that traditional financial transactions are subject to. Again, that just makes it ideally suited for people that want to do bad things.
So in other words, crypto helps those drug traffickers and rogue states launder money nearly instantaneously. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know all the fine details. I would love to see all the numbers that go into like this whole, their data, if it's legit data too, of how much, cash is involved in money laundering and all these black market things, and obviously crypto and other means to pay and transfer values and goods or whatever. But the thing is, though, they're sitting here saying that this is the ideal form. How is it the ideal form when everything is on the blockchain? I don't understand. It's almost as if, we've been talking about on this channel, we kind of saw Bitcoin and, blockchain technology as like, they're trying to feed this narrative of like, down with the banks, down with the government, you can use this and hide this and be anonymous. But it's like, if they really wanted to, they can track it all. So I don't understand how they're making that argument. Clearly they're pushing a narrative. And what Crypto Eddie said is hitting on the head. It's distorted truth and far off the mark representing the people. It's just unfortunate. I know for me, hearing this stuff constantly makes me more bullish. And I'm just going to continue to hold that energy moving forward. It's just a waiting game. But that's what I have for you. Make sure you come to the Crypto is Key Conversation YouTube channel. Subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at CryptoIsKey1. I really appreciate your support out there. With all that being said, stay strong out there and be safe.